All right, so welcome everyone to info session number one for the civic science funding opportunities at Research America. This will be a combined info session for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program and the Public Engagement Content Awards. I'd really love it if this is going to be really informal. It's a meeting setting, so if you feel comfortable to do so, I really appreciate having your cameras turned on so this could be as interactive as possible. Just some housekeeping. I'm going to start the info session with about 10 minutes or so of like a high level overview of both programs and highlighting also some key differences and similarities between the two programs. But really, this info session is an opportunity for you all to ask your questions about the programs and or the application process, sort of akin to office hours. So I'm Lori Zabala. I'm the Senior Manager of Science Initiatives and Outreach at Research America, and I oversee the two civic science programs at Research America. A little bit about me, I'm a neuroscientist by training. After graduating, I went into science policy and advocacy. So for the two programs, the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program is now in its 8th year. It is designed for groups of early career scientists to execute projects that create dialogue with the public around issues of common concern. So that could be anything from climate change all the way to light pollution. The emphasis for this program is direct engagement with non-scientists in the public. The Public Engagement Content Awards is a newer funding opportunity at Research America. This last year was the pilot year, so this is the second year. That program is for a little more experienced set of folks for curriculum development in civic science skills, and most importantly, to apply those skills. So like science communication, science policy, informal STEM learning, things like that. Think of the Public Engagement Content Awards as a train the trainer. So in addition to direct engagement with non-scientists and the public, the curriculum should also help equip scientists with civic science skills. The differences between the two programs. So in terms of funding amounts, for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, it's up to $4,000 in grant funds, and you need a fiscal sponsor for that program. The Public Engagement Content Awards is a stipend of up to $5,000 to the applicant. In terms of eligibility for the microgrant program, that's for, again, groups of early career STEM-led groups. So graduate students, master's and PhD, professional students, nursing, pharmacy, medicine, and postdocs. For the Public Engagement Content Awards, that is for PhD students all the way up through junior faculty in STEM. And we loosely define junior faculty in STEM as long as you're not tenured, right? So it's a very broad definition. The audience reach for the projects, again, for the microgrant program, we want direct engagement with public officials, local community leaders, non-scientists, and the public. The intent is to create meaningful impact in your local communities. For the Public Engagement Content Awards, the curriculum content that's created must be publicly available online, so that not only would the participants for your curriculum can benefit, but anybody who wants to replicate what you're doing, recapitulate the curriculum you did to train other scientists to build skills in the realm of civic science needs to be available. Let's see. Fiscal sponsor. All right, so this one is a big difference between the two programs. For the microgrants, you need a fiscal sponsor, and that's usually a nonprofit institution that accepts and processes the grant for your projects. In most cases, this will be an office within a university or a university department. And the grants are meant to support activities of groups, and they're not payable to individuals. For the awards program, you do not need a fiscal sponsor. As I said, these are stipends, award payments to the individual who actually applies for the award program. In terms of budget, so for the microgrant program, you do need to submit a final budget with your final reporting. For the awards program, you do not, because again, this is an award payment to the individual. Let's see. Some similarities between the two programs. Both micrograntees and awardees are offered skill building workshops, networking sessions. We hold virtual coffee chats so that you guys can build community amongst your cohort of fellow recipients. There's also mentoring involved. In terms of application scoring, there are scoring rubrics on the webpage. So I highly encourage you to take a close look at those documents for both the microgrants program and the awards program, because that is exactly how your application will be reviewed. Let's see. For 2025 and 2026, this one is for those who have applied to the microgrant program before. I instituted themes for this year. So there are 4 new themes that your application has to fall under, and you can pick more than one theme when you apply. It's on the webpage, but to talk about them briefly here, the 4 themes are collaborations, civic science at scale, recognizing lived experience, and neuroscience. And all of those are defined on the webpage, but feel free to ask questions when we get to the open forum discussion section of this info session. Very important, I do want to point out that Research America is a 501c3 organization, which means we are nonpartisan and do not participate in nor support activities that favor specific political parties or candidates. So your projects must also be nonpartisan. Lastly, I encourage you to read the web pages for detailed info. There's an FAQ section if you scroll all the way at the bottom of both of the respective civic science programs pages. There's a lot of information there. A lot of your questions, I'm sure, will be answered by going through the web pages themselves, especially the FAQs. But we welcome you to be creative, and we welcome novel ideas. So I'm going to open it up now, invite you all to ask your questions. Feel free to unmute or drop your questions in the chat.
I have a question. Hey, Lori, how are you?
I'm doing well. Hi, Tony. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So it seems as if the public engagement mechanism is designed specifically for researchers. That's who the target audience is, whereas the micro grant, you're targeting the public, right?
Yes.
So how
That's a
much
good way of
wiggle
thinking of
room
it.
is there some wiggle room with that? So for example, with the public engagement grant, could one propose some sort of curriculum where you're engaging directly with the public, but also you make those materials publicly accessible? And so it's more of a proof of concept study, something researchers who are interested in mimicking, like your setup can, reference. Does that make sense?
If I'm understanding you correctly, for the public engagement content award, you're thinking of creating curricula that is more for is more directly towards the community.
Exactly. So I can explain a little bit more. So let's say you have some sort of like boot camp and you want to teach something to the community, right? And so you have for a community academic partnership. Let's just establish that, right? And so you wanted, one second. Sorry, it's noisy in the hall. So you develop a curriculum because typically community academic partnerships, those involve some sort of co-teaching, right? So the community has community knowledge, the researchers have some sort of specialized knowledge. And so together you're developing a project, right? Some sort of academic project, right? And so what I'm asking is like, for this funding mechanism, could we develop a curriculum designed for interacting with your community partner, but then make that information available publicly for other researchers to use if they're interested in community. So it's like you're indirectly teaching people, like researchers. Does that make sense? I
Right.
don't know if
It,
that's
I,
clear.
yes, I think I'm following you, Tony. And how I'm understanding it is so the curriculum itself is for like it directly it's there's some direct collaboration with the community members, um uh, and the content is designed to create awareness and education amongst the community, and that curriculum is what you would have available online and accessible.
Right, exactly. Because if, and my example is very specific, right? This is for people who are interested in community engaged research, right? And so, like, there aren't really classes that teach you about community engaged research. And so, what a lot of us have to do is we have to read the literature, and that's how we learn, right? Um, and so, that's kind of what I'm thinking about. So, if your curriculum for the community is available online, does that count as having your material kind of indirectly targeting other researchers?
That would count. If you look at last year's awardees, there is one awardee, Thaisa Linchenko, and she actually was on our Public Engagement Content Awards webinar that was on Halloween. So you can also watch that webinar for context. But that's what she did. She designed neuroscience curriculum for incarcerated youth. So the curriculum itself was teaching juveniles in incarcerated facilities about uh, brain health, the science of drug addiction, and all of that. But as part of developing that curriculum for the incarcerated youth, she had a team. She put together a team of graduate students to help her build the curriculum. And through that process of them building the curriculum, they were also learning skills of how to create a, an appropriate curriculum on neuroscience for that specific population, right? So it was an iterative process in which the graduate students still learned, uh, science communication skills, how to convey that information to this specific population, so that she also had special education graduate students as part of her team, not just STEM graduate students. But the curriculum itself that's online, which there are links to all of our awardees' curriculum on the Research America webpage, and it's dropped in the chat there. The curriculum itself shows you that neuroscience curriculum that they finalized and came up with. So I would encourage you to check out Thaisa's curriculum project because it sounds in spirit what you're proposing. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. I was saying thank you. It does sound very similar. I have a question though. Let's assume that she did not incorporate the graduate students, right?
Mhm.
How much do you think that would have influenced whether or not she was funded?
I see. There does have to be a strong enough component that graduate students or researchers are going to be building some kind of civic science skills.
Okay,
So that
thank
has
you.
to definitely come across in your proposal.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
Mhm. Okay, great. So let's go. I saw Ben's hand up first.
I think that Julie had her hand up before me.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Um, well, thanks, Ben. So I have two, I think, really quick questions. The first one actually kind of plays off of what we were just discussing related to the team, or, like recruiting graduate students to engage in this work. Is that something like, do I need to have their names defined up top at the point of application, or is that something that I can loop them in if it is funded after the fact?
And you're talking about the Public Engagement Content
I'm
Awards?
sorry. The curriculum development
Yes,
stipend, public.
that's the Public Engagement Content Awards.
Yeah.
You don't have to know who all of your team members are up top because for that application, unlike the microgrant application, on that microgrant application, you have to have like listed minimum 2 co-organizers, and then the rest of your team can be figured out later, right? For the Public Engagement Content Awards program application, you just need one applicant on there, and then you can figure out who your team is later.
Okay, perfect. And then the second quick follow-up is the definition of STEM here. So a lot of my work is translating neuroscience for educators and how to embed like enriching activities in their classrooms. My question is, should I be really focused on STEM teaching, or is it something that we could talk about, playful learning, right? Like, I guess I'm trying to figure out precisely how STEM focused things need to be. If I should continue to pitch towards neuroscience, which is my background, or like STEM-based learning more broadly.
Gotcha. You can totally be STEM-based learning more broadly. Um, a really interesting project to look at is one of our awardees. I think it was Celia McLean. She
Mm-hmm.
did a curriculum project called Birdsong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would look at her project because it's a very interesting project and it sounds similar to kind of what you're thinking about your like informal STEM learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where we do a lot with neurodiverse populations and STEM.
Yes, she worked with that group too.
And that's where, so I was looking at this one, but I just wanted to make sure there was just kind of how that's being defined and conceptualized. So this is great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so Ben, is it your turn now?
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for hosting this. So, I'm asking a question about the micro grants program, and I noticed that it said that it's okay if we are applying to other funding sources as well, to complement this funding source. I guess I just wanted to know if there were particular types of costs that or particular items in the budget that the micro grant program is more interested in contributing to. I'm applying to the Design Your Own Community event category, and the event will cost more than $2,000 because we're bringing people in. But there's all these different types of costs in the event, and I want to know if there's a particular focus that the grant program prefers to fund.
Well, there is a section in the application where you propose the budget plus what the expenses are, so we will look at that. In terms of, we don't like favor some costs or expenses over others. We kind of look more at allowable expenses versus ineligible expenses. And also just keep in mind that the funds need to be used to execute the project, right? You can't use the funds for things like paying salary for somebody or to buy some sort of long-term equipment, right? It needs to be like very justifiably tied to whatever project you're proposing.
Okay, thank you.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks. I curious about under the micro grants and the themes, if you have any particular context or parameters you're in mind for the recognizing lived experience theme.
I hesitate to be like prescriptive and give you like what I think, because then, like I
Mhm.
want everybody to kind of be creative within the scope of the microgrant project. But I'm trying to think of what might be a good example from last year's projects. Um, Basically, that theme of, so I can't think of one off the top of my head from last year's projects that quite fits into that theme, but the spirit behind the recognizing lived experience is to have some sort of collaboration with the community in the way that honors their experiences, their insights of whatever the scientific topic is. So, for example, let's say I'm just going to stick with something neuroscience because that's my background. So, let's say you're doing a project on brain health and awareness on Alzheimer's disease, right? So, there needs to, so for something like that, your project would need, or could include, I wouldn't say need, could include, you know, patients or families of patients who have Alzheimer's or some kind of cognitive impairment, equally providing input into the project.
Mhm. Okay, so in the case of the folks I work with, we're a patient advocacy organization. So even though we come from scientific backgrounds, we're participating as patients ourselves. So that would be the lived experience we would bring in that sense. So we would be reaching out to people who wouldn't necessarily, who wouldn't be as familiar with the illness we're dealing with. So
Right, so you're targeted on, so it's like you're building awareness around something.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is completely fine.
Mhm.
But within the project itself, like part of the collaborators need to also be folks who have um, some kind of lived experience, however you want to define that, with the
Mhm.
scientific topic that is
Mhm.
the centerpiece of your project, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm. I'm not sure if it was Cynthia or I don't know how to pronounce that. Dr. Okay Inia. So whoever wants to speak up first.
I think Cynthia was before me, so I yield the floor to her.
Oh, thank you. Um, my question is centered around the Public Engagement Award, specifically in terms of like what civic science encompasses for Research America. My coworker intends to host voter panels and disseminate that information to like relevant stakeholders. And the intent of that is to be nonpartisan and find from those panels issues that our community finds relevant that affect their daily lives and while encouraging them to participate in like civic science and like political engagement. However, that is pulling the line for a lot of places because of like the line between like nonpartisan and bipartisan type of stuff. And from my understanding of the proposal that I have in front of me, that it would be nonpartisan. But I'm curious what your thoughts are.
So did you say voter panels?
Yeah, that's currently what it's framed as.
Mhm. And so let me repeat it back to you to make sure I understood. So you kind of want to get like sort of like akin to getting public opinion on like what issues are important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wouldn't be limited to a certain political group in any type of way. In fact, their intent is to have it be more community based. And
Mhm.
then the Vietnamese American community, for example, shares what issues, political issues, like affect their day to day life the most. And it might, because I mean, the argument that like everything is political, so like anything in their community, in their environment that they care about, and then that they want to be seen, spoken about at like state or like in higher office.
All right, and this is running again for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program or the Public Engagement Content Awards.
She is an early or an adjunct professor, so it's public engagement.
Okay. I think that could work.
Mhm.
What I'm missing to hear is kind of what I was emphasizing to Tony's question earlier, was in the proposal though, there needs to be a strong enough component where we can see
Mhm.
that researchers will be building civic science skills. It's fine to have a public facing
Mhm.
curriculum content that you end up putting together. But in the proposal itself, we need to understand where in your project, your curriculum project, are where does it help scientists build skills in the realm of civic science?
Got it. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I'm Dr. OK. And yeah, so I wanted to get your email address, Lori, so I can follow up with you. I'm grappling with the right way to frame my question, and as I'm listening, I'm trying to get some context in terms of the ways in which I could bring some value to this particular part of the research ecosystem. For context, I'm based here in DC. I'm a former House and Senate staffer on Capitol Hill, and I just wrote my second book, which actually has as one of its pillars civic engagement. And so I'm on a book tour now, and I'm trying to explore um, uh, entities or opportunities that align with the content in my book. And I do want to explore in kind of the extent to which I can help to build out or to shape curricula. But I'm in the very nascent stages of what this can look like. I just launched my book last month, and so and as we look at midterm next year in 2028, like I want to be able to get into the circles that align with civic engagement. We know that civic engagement, is tied to health outcomes. And I'm just curious to learn more about how we could potentially partner or just kind of figure out what would make the most sense in terms of the value and content I can bring to this particular space.
So to clarify, are you looking to apply for the Public Engagement Content Award, or it sounds like that's where you would you would fit more.
So if that's the case, then yes, I'm open to exploring what that means or kind of what that looks like. Um, and as well, just building the relationship with this ecosystem, because I'm also thinking long term, right? And given my work as an advocate, as an activist, on the ground, and then but then also as a policymaker, I'm also a bridge builder, and so I want to be able to kind of figure out, given what I've been working on for several years, how can I have an impact in this new way? So
Oh, okay, okay. So, something you said brings up a great point. In earlier when I was going over the similarities and differences between the two programs, one of the things that are similar between if whoever is a recipient of either program, one of the benefits is building your professional network of folks who are engaged in civic science, because definitely Research America has strong ties to that community. So that's definitely an advantage of being selected for this award. So definitely, if you become an awardee, then uh, we readily know folks in academia, on the policy side, you name it, who are engaged in public engagement work. Um, and then, yeah, I'll drop my email in the chat because I want to get to other folks' questions as well. But it sounds like you have other questions that might be more
yes,
beneficial on like a one-on-one or
yes,
setting.
yes.
So I'll go ahead and drop that in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mhm. Okay, Anisha?
Hi, Laurie. Thank you for the engaging talk. That was very helpful. So My question is regarding the content being publicly available. So you mentioned that the content must be publicly available. So is the criteria for the applicant to be the content, like create the content publicly available before the grant, during the time of the grant, or by the time the grant funding needs to be used up? Like,
By
do I
the
need
time,
to create content online first, like have something on public domain before I apply?
no, not before you apply. By the end of the grant terms, we expect one of your final deliverables is having publicly accessible curriculum content. So by the
Okay.
end of the grant, that's when we need your link to your Google Sites, wherever you're hosting it. If you're doing a webinar series and they're uploaded on YouTube, we need the links to that.
Right, so but does that link need to have content yet or no? Because I was thinking of planning to use the grant money to develop stuff. But do you need like placeholders on this is the visualized plan, or do you need like some things in progress before the grant application?
Before the grant application, no. The whole purpose is during this the grant period that you're developing your content, and then by the end of the grant period, that's when you have your curriculum content done and it's accessible online.
Got it. And the other piece is regarding bridging between the science and the public engagement. Now, for example, in sciences field, we as scientists are always publishing work with students, which goes outward facing in publications, in journals, and some of which is read by non-scientists too. So are publications providing awareness of a condition which massively helps other people engage in that information considered examples of that, or are you looking for more? My question is, are publications publishing manuscripts which are published online in journals, can that be also an example of the kind of projects that you guys entertain?
I don't want to give like a hard no because depending on what you write in the proposal, we'd be open to it. That said, I want to make a distinction between, so there's the Public Engagement Content Awards isn't designed to supplement or replace, the academic literature or courses offered at university for public engagement with science, right? It's meant to supplement. It's meant to be a very grassroots effort. It's also meant to be more on the application side, right? So if we make an analogy between basic research and applied research, think of the Public Engagement Content Awards as fitting in the applied research bucket, right? We want people to develop curricula content, and maybe that includes there's primary primary literature that comes out of that, but that can't be the end result because what would be missing there is that actual application of the civic science skills out in the world in whatever manner.
Right, yeah, okay. And you mentioned that the budget is not needed for the awards.
Not for the awards. That
So
is again a monetary
wherever the
stipend.
recipient seems fit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Maisha,
Hi, Lori, how are you?
doing well. Good to see you, Maisha.
Likewise, likewise. So I'm hoping now that you've heard what Tony had in mind and you know that we wanted to kind of do an ongoing engagement that would consist of two separate projects. And with that being more of the public engagement component, I would work more on the civic engagement component of what would come out of the boot camp, and then we would be able to present that data in a public forum.
So, so let me make sure I understand, Maisha. You both would want to apply for two separate civic engagement microgrant applications, or are you doing a civic engagement microgrant program application and a public engagement content award application?
Exactly, because what she just described to you would be more of the public engagement, right?
Yes.
And so what I would do would be the civic engagement component. So that would entail the actual back end of what has been trained and learned by those PCR members and members of the community. And then we will present that data in that panel style forum in some type of public engagement type of facility or some type of arena, if that makes sense.
Okay, I got you. So you and Tony are going to put in separate applications for each of the funding opportunities, correct?
Exactly, exactly.
Gotcha. I mean, I mean that's great if you guys can have different components of it, but have a larger project. Like I'm completely open to that. I would say for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program though, Misha, did look at the eligibility requirements because for that one, you still have to be, well, you have to be, it's graduate student up through postdoc. And I
Okay.
know that you graduated from your PhD program, so
In May.
yeah, if you were going to be
Okay.
a co-organizer on that application, you would need a
Mm,
postdoc position.
I see. I see. Okay. Thanks for that.
Mhm.
But,
All
but
right.
I can submit both, right? Is there anything against someone submitting for both the micro grant and the public engagement award?
Mm, no, there is not actually, because Thaisa, I can't, I think that it was you. It was talking you to refer to hers. She is actually an awardee and a micrograntee.
Within the
Um,
same cycle, though, within the same
yes, she
cycle.
was last year. You can check.
Oh,
So in the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, her group was called the Northern Nevada Brain Bee, and so I would encourage you to look up her project with that group, and you'll see how the two they're not exactly like as closely tied together as what you and Maisha are proposing, but they are related.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just point out for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, you do need two co-organizers, right? So it can't just be you on the application, Tony, for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program.
Okay. But we can still put, so if we had the two of us plus someone else who fit the eligibility criteria, Maisha is still, we can still put her on the application. There are 3 slots for that.
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay.
But at least two folks have to fit within the, graduate student to the postdoc. That the third co-organizer can be a faculty member. The third person is just the third co-organizer.
I see. Thank you.
Hmm. All right. I haven't been paying attention to the chat, so if there are questions in the chat that have not been answered, and Davy's on the back end from Research America. Thank you, Davy, for answering some of these questions. But if there are some questions in the chat that I have not answered through, has not been answered through the discussion right now, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask it. Okay. Now, I think Davy covered, all the questions that were in the chat. All right. Well, I'm gonna give it a minute or two for someone to ask me their burning questions. Um, and if not, we can wrap it up. I reserved a whole hour, but we don't have to go through the whole hour for the info sessions.
I actually do have a question. Since we want to submit 2 applications,
Mhm.
how do we convey, or maybe you just know that, how do we convey that these 2 projects are tethered together, right? So again, as Maisha said, there's like the boot camp, right? And during the boot camp, our community stakeholder, they would produce some results, right? Where we're showing community level health concerns. And then those data would be part of a larger community event. And there's more to the community event than presenting the data. We're also inviting researchers and also having leaders within the community all in one space so that we can discuss community engaged research. And this is also like an opportunity for bi-directional communication, right? Between researchers and the community. But those are still two events. So is there some way for the committee, whoever's reviewing the grants, for them to know that it's important to review them as one unit, even though we're applying to two different funding mechanisms?
So my question to you, Tony, without, so just for common knowledge, like I said, refer to the rubrics. That's how your applications will be scored, and it is reviewed by a committee within Research America, according to those rubrics. But for the two applications you want to submit, one for each funding opportunity, if the reviewer doesn't have that background knowledge, would the application stand on its own with the requirements against of the rubric?
So we would ensure that, but we just need to make sure that they so yes, the way we're writing it, yes, we're going to look at the rubric. And in theory, they could be two separate projects in theory, but we would like to fund both projects, right? So we want to follow the principles of community engaged research. And so that does involve compensating our community stakeholder, both the participants who are involved in the boot camp and who will be filling out the survey instruments, right, that we want to publish. This is a part of a proof of concept or a feasibility study, but also you do provide food. So it's a 2-day boot camp, and then we have the bigger event, right? And still you have to adhere to the principles of community engaged research, right? So still you have to feed the people who are coming, and we will have to compensate the researchers and also the community leaders with honoraria, right? So to answer your question directly, yes, they would be separate, but if you fund one without funding the other, it's like the project is kind of incomplete. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm following you. So one, they definitely have to stand alone, as even if, like, I hear you that they're connected, but they are two separate funding programs, so they have to stand alone against with the criteria they were, right? That's number one. And then number two, you know, not only your the applications as a whole will also be judged in comparison to what we receive, right? So we can't guarantee that both funding if like one gets funded, I can't guarantee that the other will. It's just we have to, it's a competitive application, right? You're vying for the funding against whoever else is applying.
I understand. And these are two separate committees. So it's not like there's one group of people who will be looking at both the micro grant and the public engagement grants.
Right. Well, last year there was, I haven't decided yet who's going to be on the reviewing committees and who, if they'll be separate. Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm going to separate them out like I did last year.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm. I saw a couple things pop up in the chat. Let me see. So Charlotte asked, is it possible to send a short summary to Research America for feedback before the application deadline? Absolutely. Send it to the microgrants@researchamerica.org email. Then I'll type that into the chat box. .org. So if you want to get some preliminary feedback on something that you're thinking of proposing, go ahead and send it in. The emphasis on short summary, give me enough where I can get a good gist of what you're proposing, but I mean, I don't really have the bandwidth to be reading 100 2-page essays on people's proposals. See what else. So Ariana asks, can students or postdocs who are also part of another fiscally sponsored organization apply for the Civic Engagement Grant as part of this organization? Ariana, could you unmute yourself and clarify? I'm not sure if I'm following your question
Yeah.
correctly.
Thank you. Yeah, so we are part of a group that is an organization that is fiscally sponsored, and we are a group of postdocs and students. And we wanted to apply not as part of our own institution, but as part of this organization. This organization is a fiscally sponsored organization. So there are two aspects here. One is being a student and postdoc that applies as part of this organization. And the second question is about being fiscally sponsored.
So you're talking about the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program.
Right. Yeah.
And the group who is applying for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program is part of a fiscally sponsored organization.
Right. Yeah. So we are volunteers as part of a fiscally sponsored organization.
So the only thing that, so the thing an organization who I'm kind of thinking sounds like what you're talking about is, and you could tell me, Ariana, if this sounds similar to what you're talking about. We have had groups, microgrant applicants who are members of the National Science Policy Network, for example. And the National Science Policy Network is its own separate nonprofit organization, but they happen to be members of NSPN. So is that akin to what you're talking about?
Yeah, so we would not apply as part of our university, but as part of this other organization. But our title, or or at least part of us, is students and postdocs. So would that be okay?
Yes, that's fine. That sounds similar to what I just mentioned about the National Science Policy Network, because they have chapters all over the country.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, and being fiscally sponsored is also fine. We are not independent nonprofit. It's a fiscally sponsored organization.
So, all right, can you define that for me? So this other organization it's not a nonprofit.
A fiscally sponsored nonprofit is basically a organization that operates under a 501c3 tax exempt. So basically, tax-wise, we are related to this fiscal sponsor. That's the nature of the organization.
Okay.
Is there any requirement for that, basically?
If I'm understanding you correctly, then that shouldn't be a problem because NSPN is also a 501c3. And as I said before, we've had micrograntee groups who are members of NSPN apply for the program. On the application for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, you would still need to put, what I think there's a field in there where you specify your university. I can't remember. I mean, you would definitely still need to be affiliated with a university because again, this is for masters, PhDs, postdocs, etc. Right?
Okay, so if there are different universities, because two organizers are from different groups for different institutions, that we can specify both of that.
Yes, and actually that's if you go to what I was talking about earlier about themes for the microgrant program, one of the themes is collaborations, and that's for joint projects between co-organizers who are at different universities.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Let's see. All right, I don't see any other unanswered questions in the chat that we didn't touch on either live or Davey took care of.
Hi, sorry for last minute question.
No worries.
So, I'm an undergraduate student, and I see that like a lot of your work the grant are focused on master's postdoc. Is there a possibility for me to apply with a professor? Would I need to apply with a postdoc or master's student as well, or I don't know. Is there a possibility of being considered or no?
And this would be for the Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, I'm thinking?
Yes.
Right. So for the eligibility crimes, they do similar to what I told someone else earlier, at least two co-organizers that are on the application have to fit the eligibility criteria. You can definitely be part of the team as like the third co-organizer, but at least 2 individuals need to fit the eligibility criteria. So if that means if you need to partner up with a master's student or somebody who's a postdoc, or two folks, I would say, because you're an undergrad, you can submit, but 2 members need to fulfill the eligibility requirements.
Thank you so much.
Alright. And I just want to say, actually, Madeline, I think that that's great that early in your career you're already getting interested and involved in civic engagement in with science. That's fabulous. So I wish you good luck. I hope you get those partners because I would be really excited to see your application.
Thank you so much.
Laurie, I have one last question too. So you mentioned there was somebody who just got who got both in the same year, the micro grant and the award.
Yes.
I would like to see that example. Can you tell me who?
Yes, her name is Taisha Lichenko. So she is an awardee, and I believe in the chat somewhere earlier. Yeah, the past there's the 2024-2025 awardees webpage, and so Taisa Linchenko, I'll type her name so you can
Okay.
find
Yes.
her, Linchenko. And also she was on the panel that I moderated on Halloween. So if you want to watch that webinar so you can learn more about her curriculum, I'd encourage you to do that. For her Civic Engagement Microgrant Program, she was part of the group that was called the Northern Nevada Brain Bee, and I'll type that name in the grant in the chat. And they there's also a link in the chat for the micrograntee webpage that features last year's cohort. Okay, so the group for the microgrant program that she was part of is called Northern Nevada Brain Bee, and then for the awards, Public Engagement Content Awards, because that goes to an individual, it's just Taisa Lichenko, but she had a team behind her. You know, she's the one who I mentioned that she brought on, I think, 11 graduate students total and STEM students, and then 3 special education graduate students to put together that neuroscience curriculum for the incarcerated youth.
Fine. I see.
But she was the actual applicant for the award.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. If anybody has any questions, send it to the microgrants email, or you also have my email now as well. If you have any other folks who are interested in getting their questions answered either about the application or the program itself, and they couldn't come to today's session, Davey has dropped into the chat info session number 2, which is next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. But I'm look forward to getting applications from all of you. I think I've heard some really great ideas already. So if there isn't any more questions, I'm gonna call it at time. But thank you everyone for coming and joining this afternoon.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Bye.